for this video, what I want to cover today, we mentioned in our last one, we would talk about immutability, and I want to give some overview of how the immutability actually works, so that when you're designing your backups, you know what to tell your management or your customers, so that you don't end up with data that you can't delete that you wanted to. So in our demo here today, we've got two backup jobs. One is immutable, one is non-immutable. The immutable is sent to the Linux repository that's on our appliance, which we call the VAP, the Veeam appliance. And the non-immutable is sending its backups to a Windows REFS file system. So if I go to, I also have a backup copy. The backup copy is sending the data offsite to continuity centers to one of our immutable vaults. So now we look at the actual backups. When I open up the properties of the backup history, what you'll see is, I'm going to expand this out for you. You'll see this immutable until column on the right side. And if I scroll down, basically for this job, we have 7 dailies and I think 4 weeklies, maybe 12 monthlies. So you can see based on the date right here, 3/29. So that's a weekly and a monthly combined, meaning it's a weekly backup that will turn into a monthly. And it will be the only weekly that's reserved for that month. And it cannot be deleted or modified until March 29th of 22 because of the 12-month immutable setting for the 12-month GFS policy. So the reason you want to think about this when designing your backups with immutability is I've met a lot of people who say, oh, we need 7-year retention. That's definitely, we need that across the board. And rarely do you need 7 years across the board, especially when you can't get rid of that data ever, because a lot of customers then come back 6 months later and say, well, I'm decomming that server. I don't need it for 7 years. You can go ahead and purge it. And we can't purge it. That's the whole point of the immutability flag is you can't delete it. I can't delete it. Walter, you can't delete it. Hackers can't delete it. The only way to get rid of that is basically to walk into the data center with a hammer and destroy the appliance. The data is there for good until the immutability flag expires. So the immutability flag will always be set to the same as your GFS retention. So let's open one of these and take a look at that. We have on the storage tab, you can see 4 weekly, 12 monthly, and 3 yearly. And here we have it set to Saturday, the last Saturday of every month, and then the last backup of December. It'll keep for 3 years. What else? So, we have this set to 30 days. So every daily backup, it's going to keep the daily incremental for 30 days. It's going to create a weekly synthetic full every Saturday. And then the last Saturday of every month will be kept as the monthly. So the immutability flag is set based on a date. So the date setting is 30 days from the day of the backup, from the daily, then 4 weeks from the day of the weekly, 12 months from the monthly, and then 3 years from the annual. Walter, I'll hand it off to you now to give us a demo of how the immutability will save the day and explain why you would be doing this.
Okay, so again, I'm coming in as a malicious actor into your network, a hacker, disgruntled employee. And before we go ahead and launch any attacks, the first thing we want to do is wipe out your backups and make sure you can't recover from whatever malware we're going to put into your system. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to get rid of all your backups. So I come to your backup disk, I right click, I go delete from disk, get rid of everything. So there's no I'm thinking twice and I want to get rid of all of your data. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to delete all of your data. And these are the non-immutable ones. So this should allow me to delete this the same way a bad actor would be able to come in and just that easily right click and get rid of your data.
So when you do what you're doing right now, where you delete the other one and you're doing, it looks like the same thing, what's the difference between deleting the immutable and non-immutable?
The Immutable had the Immutable flag, and it's going to show you what that does as it tries to delete these files. Veeam will actually come back and give us an error about the deletion of the Immutable backups, as opposed to the non-immutable, where Veeam asked me to think twice about it, and it let me get rid of it because it's allowed to.
Oh yeah, I see that right in the background. The backup job is already gone. All of those disks. Okay, and for this one, it's saying unable to delete. So real important is Immutable is great when you don't want to lose data, but Immutable is not great when you want to remove data. So think about your plan for which backups you really need to protect for several years or longer. You can have with Veeam, you can have multiple repositories, multiple scale out backup repositories, the SOBRs, and you can configure some with immutability and some without.
So as you can see, there's 0 deleted files. It was unable to get rid of any of them, and it tells you, hey, you literally, you can't get rid of these until the date that we set with the immutability flag. So
awesome.
Your data has been protected against my malicious attack to try and delete.
All right, perfect. And as you see in the background, the other backup job that was there, all of those backup chains and all of the VBKs, VBIs, those are all gone. And they're gone for good. Those are the ones that were on REFS, which does not support immutability. And then one last quick one is this is the same non-immutable backups that you deleted, except these were the ones that were sent off site to continuity centers, to one of our data centers, and that is immutable. So I'm going to delete it, and check all the boxes and hit delete. And essentially now, for your non-immutable backups in this demo that were stored locally, we were also sending a copy off site to an immutable repository. Now we're showing the hacker trying to delete them because he's going to try to wipe out all your backups. And even though you did lose all of your local non-immutable backups, they are protected off-site because they are immutable off-site. So momentarily this will come up, say failed to delete them for the same way that you just showed us. And then the customer can easily right-click on the backups, download them, and basically repopulate the local repository. So in closing, we see here that those off-site immutable backups were not able to be deleted. So even though the hacker did delete your local backups that were non-immutable, you still have a copy of them off-site that you can download, repopulate the local repository. You can still do recoveries from, etc. And final wrap-up of immutability and what it means. It's essentially setting a timeline, a date in the future for which from now until then, that file cannot be changed, modified, deleted. It is read-only, similar to worm technology, write once, read many. And then once that, whatever date it's set to is reached, you can then purge that back up. So consider that when picking some servers that maybe you don't really need for 7 years of retention, and you can set them accordingly.